So listen up, ayo, I got a theory. Because the word Akata seems to be a mystery. People say they know, but what about the history? Who am I? But some call me Iyore. I'm Nigerian, but I'm from America. So this is 5 minutes with an Akata. Thank you so much, Becca, for joining me for this episode.
Always a pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. All right, so let's just jump right into it. What does the word Akata mean?
So I grew up hearing it a lot, as it pertained to African American people. It wasn't until I was, I think, like my late teens that I discovered it was actually a derogatory term meant to describe a wild beast. So I found that offensive because a lot of the times actually in my childhood, it was being directed towards me. Because in my household growing up, we weren't being taught Yoruba. We weren't being taught about the culture. We weren't sent home or anything like that. So whenever we were around my cousins who were, there was always kind of like that stigma about how Americanized myself and my siblings were. So we would be called Akata. So when I discovered that it was a derogatory term, I was like, that's really messed up. But even if it wasn't being used towards me, just the fact that that's how they were describing African Americans was offensive in general. So that's what it means. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Very interesting. So who used it, or who revealed that to you? Who revealed that that's what it meant?
I think I actually did the research. So I was doing a Yoruba course, and my stepdad had introduced me to it, and it was this workbook, and it was basically teaching me Yoruba, going deeper because I was already pretty familiar, but it was teaching me about pronunciation and spelling and different things like that. So I had just gotten accustomed to looking things up and doing the research. So that was when I had discovered it, and I presented it to my stepdad, and he was like, yeah, you didn't know that? And I'm like, no, y'all been calling me that. Y'all been calling my friends that. Y'all been calling everybody that's, African American that. And that's mad weird and crazy because we're not different.
You told me a story, and if you can briefly, you told me a story about a guy using that word with your mother to describe you, maybe someone you were dating. Can you briefly give me that story again?
Wow. Yeah. So I am single, and I really enjoy being single, and my mom really insists that I not be. And I found myself thinking that this guy that I was seeing was gonna make her so happy. So I was just like, yeah, let's try to make this work. When it wasn't working, I had a conversation with her, and I think they had already started having conversations because they had exchanged numbers. So they must have had a conversation, and she basically called me and was like, you need to be less Akata in order for this relationship to work. And that was really, really wild to me, because it was like you're telling your daughter to be someone she's not, and you're also diminishing who she is by using this term. And all for the sake of a man who it's literally not working out with. Can it just not work out?
Wow.
So that was a recent experience with the term being used, and I don't get so offended by it because I don't allow words to have the power, to be used as abuse towards me. I'm just in a different space when it comes to words and what I allow. So it doesn't affect me. But when I did step back and look at this conversation and the situation, I was just like, yo, this culture is wild.
What's one thing that we have in common? That's the first thing that kind of sticks out to you that we have in common, that Africans and African Americans have in common?
Our skin color. That's the easiest and obvious thing. We have that in common. And I feel like it's so beautiful. I feel like that alone should unify us. You are beautiful. Do you see that?
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Becca, for joining me for this episode. It's always an enlightening moment and enlightening and grow. I feel like I always grow a little bit when I speak to you. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I love these conversations too. It's a pleasure.
Hey, if you think you know what this word means, I would love to talk to you. If you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, share, and help spread the hope of unity. On Hiyansekbe, y'all, I leave you with love, joy, faith, hope, peace.
LAM.